Well, yeah, good morning, everyone. Welcome to the bridge. If you're new, my name's Mark, one of the pastors here on staff, and as Rachel just shared, definitely one of the tough weeks. And so this morning, I carry an extra weight as we wade into this topic. Of course, none of this was planned. Lisa and Kaylee were here this morning, sit right there in that front row. Be praying for them. 51, unexpected. And I also want to say this. So many of you have been supporting them, loving on them. Tremendous, tremendous church family. So thank you. For those of you who don't know them, just pray for them. It was a cool thing in this situation. I know the chief of Chino PD and some others and who were involved with this, and they told me on the side, they're like, yeah, this is highly unusual to see this many people supporting a family. We don't see this that much. And so amidst the tragedy, thank you. Just for being, honestly, the hands and feet of Jesus to them. Know that as part of the grief process, this is just the beginning. And even months from now, years from now, that they will still need that support. It's nothing that goes away or that you ever get over. You work through it, but you don't get over it. And so I told Lisa and Kaylee as they're here, there's nothing you can say. We love them, we're with them. We miss Joe, but we will also celebrate Joe. And if you know Joe, he had a great sense of humor. And they laughed when I said this, so you guys know me, I'm not a Dodger fan. But for Joe, I will wear a Dodger jersey. If you were here last Sunday, we were in this series called God Questions. And I started kind of a series within a series last Sunday, and that is all about what's called the problem of evil. And for thousands of years, philosophers, theologians have wrestled with this question. The problem of evil is basically this question in some shape or form. How can an all-good, all-loving, and all-powerful God allow evil and suffering? So just kind of a lighthearted conversation. I started that last Sunday. It's such a deep question. I'm doing it on 2 Sundays, but even that, it could be a whole series. And obviously all that happened not knowing that early the next morning we would be dealing with suffering. And so in some ways it's completely fitting. And it made me reflect. Often these questions happen, at least for me, when I was in college, doubting my faith, and they start as these very abstract, philosophical, man, is God real? There's all this pain and suffering, how can he be real, and where is he at? And those questions are good and necessary, but you have to remember, and it's so apparent now, that these aren't questions and discussions that just happen in a stale lecture hall in an ivory tower with philosophers. No, this is real everyday life in the trenches of life. Life is full of suffering. And now we're dealing with that as a church. And for many people across the world, we're going to Kenya in 2-3 weeks, evil and suffering is a daily reality for them. And so I want to say these aren't just philosophical things to head into to get smart. These are deeply pastoral, practical, in the trenches of life discussions. And so because of that, I wanted to start off this morning with a real story of a real person who experienced real evil and suffering. In the first book of the Bible, the book of Genesis, towards the end, and we usually skip this part, there's a story of a guy named Joseph. And if you're new to the church, unfamiliar with the Bible, let me give you some background information on Joseph. Joseph is this. He was a 17-year-old teenage boy, just 17, okay? And here's what he experienced. He had a lot of older brothers. It's actually where Israel comes from, his family. And they were very jealous of him and very envious. He had a special relationship with his father. His father favored him. And out of their envy for Joseph, they said, hey, let's kill him. And so they go to murder their brother. Thankfully, they don't actually end up going through with it. Instead, they just drop him in a deep cistern and leave him there to die. Long story short, they ended up taking him out and they sell him into slavery in Egypt. So let's just pause right there. Here's a 17-year-old boy, junior in high school, who within his own family faces horrible evil and suffering. Like, can you imagine your siblings trying to kill you? And then, let's just sell him into slavery. But then it gets worse for Joseph. Joseph is sold into slavery to Egypt. He has a master. His master's name is Potiphar. And things are going well. Joseph has a lot of favor. Except his master's wife finds him very attractive. Literally, actually, the Bible tells us this. And she wants to sleep with him. Joseph, totally full of integrity, says no. Well, she doesn't like that. And so she ends up framing him for attempted rape. She says, oh, look at this slave you brought into our house. He just tried to rape me. And so then that happens, and then Joseph goes into prison. So here's 17-year-old Joseph, attempted murder by brothers, sold into slavery in Egypt. Once he's a slave in Egypt, then he's falsely accused of attempted rape, and now he ends up in a dungeon in Egypt. If we put ourselves in the mind of Joseph, and you are in the trenches of evil and suffering, it's very likely that you will be tempted to doubt or question God in one of three ways, perhaps all three, actually. Okay? Now, I know you guys missed all my diagrams from the book of Genesis. So here comes the first diagram. These are the three ways that I think Joseph would have been likely to have tempted and doubted and questioned God. And here's the deal. It's the exact same three for us today. Let's go through these. First one. The utterness of evil. This might sound weird, but I think if you've been in this position, you'll know what I'm talking about. Sometimes you wonder, man, this is so bad. Like, this is so unfair. Like, maybe this isn't real. Or maybe right now it's bad, but years from now, decades from now, it actually will be a good thing. Like, in hindsight, this will all work out. This isn't really that bad. I just have to work through it. The other two, probably a little bit more relatable. Is God really good? And all these bad things are happening to me. There's no way God can be good. If he really loves me, he wouldn't allow that to happen to me. I sense Joseph may be thinking that. God, if you're really good, why'd you let my brothers kill me? Attempt to kill me, sell me to slavery, Potiphar's wife. God, you can't be good. And the bottom one, the sovereignty of God. Sovereignty, kind of an old school word, means to make the plans of God, the control of God, the power of God. God, are you really in control? Like, if you're really in control, God, if you really know what you're doing, if you're God, again, wouldn't you have stopped my brothers from having them sell me into slavery? Wouldn't you have stopped Potiphar's wife from framing me of attempted rape? Like, God, maybe you're actually not all that powerful. This is the tension that Joseph is in. And I would say these are the exact same dynamics for you and I when we experience evil and suffering in life. God, maybe you're not good, you're not loving, you're not powerful, or really, this isn't really evil. Now, let's continue on with the Joseph story, and I want you to see how it ends. Long story short, takes lots and lots of chapters, long, windy road. Quite surprisingly, and in a very ironic way, Joseph ends up, believe it or not, becoming the Pharaoh of Egypt's right-hand man. In other words, second in charge, perhaps what we would call today in America the vice president. So Joseph becomes vice president of Egypt. Total reversal. Like if you know books or old movies like The Count of Monte Cristo, this is a huge reversal full of irony that happens in the plot line, and it actually gets even more interesting. Because a famine strikes the land in Egypt. So people are without food. And remember, agricultural society. So crops, fruit, all this stuff, very, very important, all gone. But here's the interesting thing. Joseph actually was very gifted and called by God to interpret dreams. And so he actually had predicted to the Pharaoh, hey, there is going to be a famine in Egypt. And so what you should do now in light of that is store up all the crops, all the fruit, everything, water, so that when the famine comes, we're good to go. And we have all the resources, and it won't be a devastating blow to our country and region. And so here's the ironic thing that happens in the story of Joseph. Remember his brothers? The ones who tried to kill him, who sold him into slavery? They end up come running into Egypt to the throne, begging for food because they're in a famine. And they end up literally approaching Joseph, second in charge, asking this man to help them out, and they don't even realize that it's their brother. Giant reversal. And so now I want us to pick up the scene, literally at this moment, where they are approaching their brother Joseph, asking for food. Here's what happens. Genesis chapter 45, verses 4 through 8. If you need a Bible this morning, page 33 in these right underneath your chairs. Feel free to grab that and take it home if you need be. Start at verse 4. Here we go. Then Joseph said to his brothers, "Come close to me." When they had done so, he said, "I am your brother Joseph, the one that you sold into Egypt. And now, do not be distressed and do not be angry with yourselves for selling me here, because it was to save lives that God sent me ahead of you. For 2 years now, there's been famine in the land, and for the next 5 years, there will be no plowing and no reaping. But," and here it is, "God sent me ahead of you to preserve for you a remnant on earth and to save your lives by a great deliverance. So then, it was not you who sent me here, but God. He made me father to Pharaoh, lord of his entire household and ruler of all Egypt." Again, it was not you who sent me here. And you should read that and you should say, well, hold on, no. They did send him there. And they did. They sold him into slavery. So what do you mean you didn't know? You did send him, Joseph. What are you talking about? No, you didn't send me here. What? Continue on. Five chapters later, the very last chapter in the book of Genesis. And this is one of the most insightful verses, I think, in the whole scriptures. And because what it does is it kind of rolls back the curtain and you get into the inner dynamics of the mind of God. Situation is this. This is years later after that scene. Joseph and his brothers are together because their dad is dying. And Joseph says this to his brothers. Again, remember, the brothers who attempted to murder him and sold him into slavery. Here it is, Genesis 50:20. "You intended to harm me, but God intended it for good, to accomplish what is now being done, the saving of many lives. Put otherwise, you planned evil against me. You did evil. You are responsible for trying to kill me and selling me into slavery. But God took your plans and made something good come out of them." Question: why bring up this random, ancient, over 3,000-year-old story to us today. Here's why. Because I think in a lot of ways, the story of Joseph offers you and I a paradigm of how God deals with the problem of evil. I think that the inner workings of the Joseph story actually, in a very mysterious way, show us from Genesis to Revelation what God does in response to evil and suffering. Mark, what do you mean this is the paradigm of the Bible? What do you mean this is God's answer, God's solution in response to evil and suffering? I mean this, the very core claim of Christianity is to answer the problem of evil. The central truth of the Christian faith is the answer and the defeat of evil and suffering. Hang on to this. We try to explain evil. The Bible and God are far more interested in defeating it. We as moderns, we are very interested in trying to philosophically answer and rationalize and explain why all these bad things are happening. And that is totally normal and fine. I'm not bashing that at all. But the ancients, actually in some ways because evil and suffering was a daily reality for them, they were far more interested and desperate not to explain it, but to answer it. They wanted to know that evil and suffering at some point in time, in some way, will be decisively defeated. And that is what the scriptures are interested in answering. So I am of the posture, and some people would disagree with this, that the Bible doesn't always explain why. I think there's some mystery there. But what I would say is that the Bible answers and gives the defeat and solution to evil. Now, remember that diagram from like 5 minutes ago? Let's put it back up, but this time updated. This is what I want us to see this morning. The three tensions, the three questions that we ask and we wrestle with in the problem of evil. Is evil actually real? Is God actually good? Is God actually powerful, control, or sovereign? I think this is the core claim of Christianity. So keep this in your mind. And now let's turn to the New Testament, the book of Acts. Acts is after the Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, John, Acts. Let's go to chapter 2. If you're using the beautiful orange Bibles that make you wonder if you need to go to LensCrafters, page 744. Verse 22. The Apostle Peter is talking. Fellow Israelites, listen to this. Jesus of Nazareth was a man accredited by God to you by miracles, wonders, and signs, which God did among you through him, as you yourselves know. And here it is. This man was handed over to you by God's deliberate plan and foreknowledge. And notice the tension here. And you, with the help of wicked men, put him to death by nailing him on the cross. Verse 24. But God raised him from the dead, freeing him from the agony of death, because it was impossible for death to keep its hold on him. Every worldview, and a worldview is religions, philosophies. Think of a worldview as like glasses that you put on and how you see life and reality. Every worldview will attempt to answer the problem of evil. It is a problem for everyone, not just Christians. If you weren't here last Sunday, please go listen to that on YouTube. There's a lot I'm not saying this morning because I hopefully addressed it last Sunday. But know this, Buddhism will say that suffering isn't really real. Evil and suffering are actually an illusion. So in Buddhism, the point is you just need to accept it. They would say you need to detach yourself from your desires. It's when you detach yourself that evil and suffering no longer affect you. Karma. And I got to tell you, karma is alive and well in American Christianity. Oh, I talk to a lot of Christians. Oh, yeah, karma. Well, no, actually, I don't know karma. It's not in the Bible. So listen to this. Karma will say, well, you deserve the evil and suffering you're experiencing because that's from bad decisions in your past life. And so now you're paying for it. That's not in the scriptures. Actually, Jesus says something like the sun rises on both the good and the evil. Well, atheism, evil and suffering are pointless. There's no meaning to it. You die, it's all over. Evil and suffering are a disruption to a life of comfort and pleasure. So then the point is either avoid it or you fix it. But it's really hard to avoid evil and suffering. And so far, as technologically advanced as we are, it seems like we haven't solved it. If anything, it's actually gotten worse. But Christianity says, no, to all of those. Christianity says evil and suffering is real, but it shouldn't be. And often, it's real because wickedness and human sin, evil and suffering actually happens to the innocent, to the righteous person, to Jesus. In fact, Christianity takes it, evil is so real within a Christian worldview that it's not just humans who participate in it and cause it, but there's something called satanic evil, demonic evil. And I've said this before, and it seems to me to be the most rational thing to believe in now. Evil is so big. Like, think of massive things like World War II, Holocaust. Think of the tsunami I talked about last week. Think about 9/11. Just things that kill thousands or hundreds of thousands or millions of people. What will people automatically say? Or like a school shooting. Oh man, that seems demonic. Yeah, exactly. There is demonic evil. There is satanic evil. And then the Christian claim is, yeah, when Jesus is crucified on the cross, guess who led that? Satan. So it's not even just human evil. There is this powerful, unseen realm of really bad spirits, demons, Satan. And so at the cross, in the Christian worldview, Jesus takes on and receives and absorbs pure, raw, utter evil, injustice, cruelty, violence, murder, hatred. All while being innocent and righteous. And God's Son. God himself, in Jesus, God in the flesh, experienced suffering and utter evil? Yeah. And this actually gets to, believe it or not, the utter goodness and love of God. See, not only does the cross show that Christianity takes evil seriously, but the Christian faith, in fact, takes it so seriously that God himself allows evil and suffering to happen to him so that we don't have to. Why? Because he utterly loves you. Tim Keller, in his book, The Reason for God, that I've been referencing a lot the last couple weeks, not sure if there's any copies left back there at the Info Center to purchase. He put it this way. This has been very helpful for me. If we again ask the question, why does God allow evil and suffering to continue? And we look at the cross of Jesus, we still do not know what the answer is. However, we now know what the answer isn't. It can't be that he doesn't love us. It can't be that he's indifferent or detached from our condition. God takes our misery and suffering so seriously that he was willing to take it on himself. See, God is truly God with us. Not just at Christmas time when we say Emmanuel, but he's God with us in the trenches of suffering and death. No other religion can say this. No other religion has this claim. So many people in our culture today, I think America all of a sudden has turned very deeply spiritual. I think most people believe in God. I mean, you just walk, hey, do you believe in God? But yeah. But I think here's where the turn happens. Most people will believe in a God maybe who's distant. A small percentage of people believe in a God who's intimate and involved in the everyday moments of their life, and especially in the moments of evil and suffering. But the Christian claim is that is exactly where the God of the universe is with you. See, God didn't just make you. That's a big enough deal right in of itself. He didn't make you. But he passionately loves you so much that he chose to suffer and experience horrific tragedy for you so that he can relate to you. So that he can sympathize with you in the deepest, darkest moments of suffering. That is why at the core of the Christian faith, it is a cross. That is the first century equivalent of the electric chair. And it is at the cross that we see the depths of evil being forced on Jesus precisely because he is all loving and all good. Keller again poignantly writes this. The main reason that Christians insist that God can be trusted in the midst of suffering is that God himself has firsthand experience of suffering. You ever been in a really bad situation that's tough, hard, for whatever reason, and you have someone who tries to console you, and then they say stuff like this. Oh, I've been there before. I know exactly what this is like. And inside your mind, you're like, nah, bro, actually you don't. People say this very, very flippantly. In situations like that is almost the worst thing to say. And if you're the person receiving those words, if you're not careful and you don't process that, it can actually be easy to develop a lot of anger and bitterness. Because the person who's trying to console you, they don't know what it's like. And they have no business trying to console you. However, there is also nothing more comforting than a person being with you who knows exactly what you're going through. That is the Christian God. He knows exactly what you're going through. Are you going through the hard knocks of life right now? Know this. It isn't just that God is near you. Yes, he is near you. It's that he knows what it's like. He's with you. He's been murdered with violence and hatred and injustice. In a very weird way, are you aware of the suffering of God? And maybe that's even kind of feels weird for some of us to think God has suffered. Yes, the Christian claim is that God has suffered. And but does that comfort you? And I don't mean that in a twisted way. I mean that in when you go through the hard knocks of life, for you to know, the God that I pray to, the God that I worship, he can relate. He's with me in my suffering because he was killed. Some of you need to know that God gets you. He knows what it's like. He's lost his own son. Jesus, a descriptor of Jesus? How is this for a Lord and Savior? Job description and title. A man of sorrows and deeply acquainted with grief. As Keller puts, suffering is unbearable if you aren't certain that God is for you and with you. Suffering will crush you. or it will numb you if you aren't certain that God is with you and he's for you. So for those of us suffering, and we are a church in mourning, the Christian faith provides as a resource not just this teaching on the love of God displayed on the cross, but here, check this out. It also gives us the power and the fact of the resurrection. It is one thing to be consoled. It is a whole other thing to be given hope. It's one thing to be consoled. It is a whole other thing to be given actual hope. I want us to go back to the diagram now. Let's put up with the cross in the middle. If you've been tracking with me, indirectly, I've talked about the utter evilness of evil, the utter goodness of God, and now I want to talk about the bottom one, the utter sovereignty of God, the power of God, the plans of God, the control of God. Let me reread for us Acts 2, 23 through 24. This man, Jesus, was handed over to you by God's deliberate plan and foreknowledge. That's the sovereignty of God. And you, with the help of wicked men, you put him to death by nailing him to the cross. But God raised him from the dead, freed him from the agony of death, because it was impossible for death to keep its hold on him. Now here's the moment I've been waiting for, because I need to talk to you about judo. Judo. You guys didn't see that coming? If you don't know what judo is, from my understanding, and first of all, I thought about trying to enact it for you, but I was like, no, that's going to be a bad idea. But jiu-jitsu, you've probably heard of that. So this is an Olympic sport. This is a very real thing. And if I understand judo right, the whole point of judo, literally there's a philosophy behind it, is to take all the energy and the force of your opponent's attack and to turn it back on them in such a way that they're flattened by their own assault. So, meaning you basically use your opponent's own strength and tactics against them. And you use it to beat them, actually. It's very, very interesting here. So, they say here that you leverage your opponent's effort and momentum against them. You redirect their energy and their force, often by adjusting to their movement and balance. You want to make them lose their balance so that in turn, you create opportunities for a successful throw or other technique. What I want to say is this. I think basically God uses judo to defeat the problem of evil. Hang with me here. God is the supreme judo champion. And the cross and the resurrection is God's supreme judo move. It's his KO. That means knockout if you don't know boxing. Now, let's bring all this together. Remember the story of Joseph. What happened there? Well, you had his brothers who acted very evil, extremely wicked, and did evil and wicked things to him, of which he suffered. That was completely their responsibility, their decision. God was not doing that. But what did God do? Well, he used some judo on them. And he took their evil, their decisions, and he flipped them. He put them in reverse, and he did that and put Joseph in a powerful position so that then he could use the brothers' evil actions then to save the whole country and region of Egypt. This is judo. This is reverse. This is taking what you meant for evil, I meant for good to save many lives. Do you see this? I mean, this is judo. I think this is a really cool metaphor. Maybe it's just me. So here you have Jesus, completely, not just innocent, but actually righteous, God's Son. And the worst possible evil is done. There is no worst possible evil than violently murdering someone who's innocent. Much less, by the way, God's Son. Jesus took those things on the cross, and he did a judo move in response. God defeated evil by allowing evil to do its worst from him and then physically rising from the grave 3 days later. It's like he said, guess who's back? It's as Joseph says in Genesis 50:20, you meant evil against me, but God meant it for good. This is how God is so sovereign and powerful, is because he takes what humans and Satan do for evil and he turns it onto its head for ultimate good. This is what redemption means. This is the story of redemption, and this is the exclusive bedrock of the Christian faith, that the cross turns into resurrection. What you meant for evil, you wicked men who nailed him to the cross, Peter says, death couldn't hold him down. This is the greatest defeat of all time. And here's the deal. Here's why this matters for you today. Because this is the exact same way that God works with evil and suffering in your life today. See, when Jesus was physically resurrected from the dead, it wasn't just that God consoled him. What do I mean? It wasn't like that Jesus died and then he went off as a spirit and floated around the clouds like a ghost, and God just, gave him a Hallmark card and said, oh, I'm with you. Everything's good. You're going to be okay, Jesus. It just consoled him, comforted him. Nah. He went way further. He brought his body back from the grave. The body that was killed is the same one that was physically resurrected. The body that had evil and violence and hatred and cruelty done to it is the same body that was resurrected. That is why resurrection is the ultimate and the only defeat of evil. It ain't just consolation. It's not just spiritual comfort up in heaven. No, it's getting your body back. It's restoration of what life ought to be. And that is good news for any human being alive. Because if you're a follower of Jesus, check this out. What happened to Jesus is what will happen to you. The resurrection is the promise and the foretaste of what God will do to not only just you, but this whole earth. And now we're going to get going. Keller explains this well. Reason for God. The biblical view of things is resurrection, not just a future that is just a consolation for the life we never had, but a restoration of the life you always wanted. This means that every horrible thing that ever happened will not only be undone and repaired, but will in some way make the eventual glory and joy even greater. Take that, Satan. Katie talked about you confused Satan. Oof. To drive the point home, let me give you another Keller quote. But resurrection is not just consolation, it is restoration. We get it all back. Here, the love, the loved ones, the goods, and the beauties of this life, but in new, unimaginable degrees of glory and joy and strength. There is no other faith, religion, or philosophy that makes this claim. Christianity is utterly unique in this way. Christianity is the only worldview that says pain, evil, and suffering and tragedy that you face in this life, and you will face them, they will be restored and made even better in the one to come. And oh, by the way, it's a free gift of grace. That is the ultimate defeat of evil, and it's found in Jesus Christ. Summary. It's in the cross that evil is shown to be evil. It's on the cross that God is shown to be absolutely in love with you, so much so that he dies for you. And it's in the resurrection that God is shown to be so powerful that he defeats death, evil, and suffering for all time. See, it's actually in the cross that all three tension points are met and answered. We may not know why, but doggone it, we know who wins. Every single human being, in your bones, you long for restoration. You and I, we dream, we ache about seeing our deceased father or mother or brother or sister or son or daughter or family friend again. right? We dream about that. We're nostalgic about it. Oh, I can't wait to see them again. Oh, what are we going to do? Right? We're naturally nostalgic, at least I am, about playing sports again with my dad, going on that annual family vacation again together, sharing that favorite dinner meal together again, meaning you and I, we aren't just happy with consolation and comfort. Comfort is nice, it's needed, absolutely, but you were made for more. You were made to experience this life restored in all of its beauty. That is resurrection, and that is what Jesus Christ accomplished for us. One of my all-time favorite quotes, C.S. Lewis put it this in The Great Divorce. He writes, "They say of some temporal suffering, no future bliss can make up for it, not knowing that heaven, once attained, will work backwards and turn even that agony into a glory." So in a week, 6 days ago, last Monday morning, that we lost one of our own. In the spirit of nostalgia, I lost my father in a very similar way to how Joe passed. And in this room, on this stage, a year and a half ago, I did my father's celebration of life. And so I want to end this morning with the lengthy quote that I said at my dad's celebration of life. Here it is. I'll go ahead and invite the worship team up. "Only the resurrection promises us not just new minds and hearts, but also new bodies. They are going to be more indissoluble, more perfect, more beautiful. They will be able to be and do and bear the burden of what bodies are supposed to do in a way in which our present bodies cannot. If you can't dance and you long to dance, in the resurrection you'll dance perfectly. Hallelujah. If you're lonely, in the resurrection you'll have perfect love. If you're empty, in the resurrection, you'll be fully satisfied." Oh, this is so good. Ordinary life is going to be what's redeemed. There is nothing better than ordinary life, except that it's always going away and always falling apart. Ordinary life is food and work and chairs by the fire and hugs and dancing and mountains. It's this world, and God loves it so much that he gave his only son so that we and the rest of this ordinary world could be redeemed and made perfect. And that is what's in store for us. On the day of the Lord, the day that God makes everything right, the day that everything sad comes untrue, on that day, the same thing will happen to your own hurts and sadness. And you will find that the worst things that ever happened to you will be in the end only enhance your eternal delight. And on that day, all of it will be turned inside out, and you will know joy beyond the walls of the world. The joy of your glory will be that much greater for every scar you bear. So my question for you simply is this morning. Who or what is your hope in? And by the way, everyone puts their hope in something. So if you're here and you're not a Christian, you're not religious, you have hope. And Christians put their hope in lots of stuff other than Jesus. We put our hope in money. We put it in our investment portfolios. We put it in our houses. We put it in our kids. We put it in our jobs, your appearance, your Instagram likes. The question isn't, do you have hope? The question is, who or what do you have your hope in? And really what I'm asking, is your hope in the crucified and risen Jesus? Are you comforted? Listen carefully to me here. Are you comforted by his sufferings? And are you hopeful in his resurrection? It's consolation, but not just consolation. It's consolation in power. And there ain't nothing better than that. It's the knockout move. This is good news for everyone. Can we all stand? I'm going to invite the prayer team up. If you're struggling with grief this morning, doubts, questions, you just come forward and get prayer. You don't need to say anything. They can just pray for you. Of course, if you want to say something, you can. This is a safe place to process. One of the best ways of allowing others to love you is to allow them to pray for you, with you. So come forward and get prayer for anything. Why don't we just extend our hands right now? We're going to sing a song. It's really hard to find worship songs that talk about God's suffering because we live in a culture that doesn't want to deal with suffering. But it's interesting, our God certainly got his hands and feet dirty and suffered. Let this song minister to you. Come, Holy Spirit.